It has been 90 days since Apple started shipping the iPad mini 6, and I am somewhat of a fan to say the least. That is because I'm able to use the iPad mini 6 in so many different day-to-day tasks that would be typically reserved for my iPhone 13 Pro Max. Now, if you're wondering if the iPad mini 6 is worth purchasing, you are in the right place because in today's video, I'm going to give you my feedback after using the device for the past 90 days. What is going on, everybody? My name is Mike. Welcome back to Tech 24/7 TV. I'm really glad that you're back with me today because we're talking about the iPad mini 6. Now, it's no secret that Apple devices are premium and they're very expensive. And really, the iPad mini 6 has got a lot to offer, but the question is really, is it worth purchasing? Well, after 90 days, I'm going to give you my feedback. We're going to talk about how the iPad mini is holding up after 90 days of consistent daily usage, if I'm still in love with the iPad, or if the honeymoon phase is over, jelly scrolling, and so much more. Let's get started. Today's video is broken down into different topics, and I have each one of those topics pinned right below the like button. Now, this video is not going to be a deep dive on the specs of the iPad mini 6. Again, I don't think that's why you're here. You're looking for real-world, consistent usage, which that's what you're going to find. This is not going to be a rehash of my 30-day review, though I will talk about kind of some of the mental models I use for which device I pick up and how I approach iPad productivity. But largely speaking, you will not see the same themes in today's video. That is because I don't think it'd be very useful to either you or I if I basically just rehashed everything I talked about in the first video and called it a 90-day review. If you find value in long-term product reviews like this iPad mini 6 90-day review, let me know by clicking the like button down below so I can create future content like this. Also, it signals to YouTube that people like you and people like me like this, and they can push it out to more people who have similar interests. Now let's talk about how I use the iPad mini 6, where it fits in my daily workflow. I originally purchased the iPad mini 6 space gray with 64 gigs of storage, and it was the Wi-Fi only version. Now, after using this device for really about a day, I quickly understood that the mobility aspect of this device, getting to use it while you're out and about, is really the premier feature, and the size and portability play into that. I exchanged the Wi-Fi only version, and I now have the cellular version. And if you're interested in getting an iPad with cellular enabled, I'll link the video right above here so you can watch it. It really outlines the entire process that I thought why it's valuable for that. Now, in terms of storage, this is 256 gigs of internal storage. And the reason why I chose 256 gigs because the OS has like about a 10 gigabyte footprint. If you have that 10 gig footprint from the OS, you're going to leave yourself about 54 gigs worth of storage. To me, I don't think it's necessarily worth it to go ahead and have to manage that storage very closely. So I wouldn't really recommend anyone purchasing the 64 gig model unless you are truly strapped for cash, one, or two, you have the ability, if you're going to maybe keep the device for less than 2 years. I would save the money and buy it when I had the ability to. Now, while we're talking here, if you are finding value in this type of content, let me know that by hitting that subscribe button right down there. Yep, that is it. Thank you very much. And let me know down in the comments below how I can help you be more productive in 2022 with your iPad. One of the things that I've heard most from the community is the challenge with people trying to balance how they set up their iPad mini in comparison with their iPhone or maybe even a larger size iPad. A lot of people actually have more than one iPad that like the iPad mini, like myself. A word of advice, if you're going to get the iPad mini, do not set it up like your other iPad because this is a device that has a really unique computing experience in comparison to a larger iPad. Conformability, size, and you want to make sure that you do the, I think I want to say respect, to set this up differently when you think about how you plan to use this. Don't just copy and paste, for lack of a better term, your apps and your settings over to this device. Really think about it and think about how you're going to use it because it'll do yourself justice in the long run. In terms of workflow, my iPad mini 6 is my constant daily companion, and it's still the first device that I check when waking up after I turn off the alarm on my iPhone 13 Pro Max. Now, my use cases really revolve around using the iPad mini as an adjunct device to the iPhone 13 Pro Max when the screen size of the iPhone 13 Pro Max is really causes a disadvantage. Now, the iPad mini is not a replacement for my iPad Pro. I want to be clear on that. The iPad Pro is still very much a part of my workflow. This device really fits in there as something I rotate in and out of the tools that I use in my tool belt. My morning routine has getting my son up and ready for school, the very first thing to do, followed by the mapping out my day using my planning focus. Now, that workflow is really designed to take advantage of the large screen on the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. That's my go-to device to really power through my planning focus. But instead of coming back to the iPad Pro or even my iPhone throughout the day, I'm using the iPad mini to check in and see what my progress is like on the tasks or the goals that I've set aside for myself. Now, I'm also using it to check my email and Spark, manage my personal and professional tasks in Todoist, or maybe even taking a break and watching some videos on YouTube. If I need to make a quick edit in Lightroom, I walk over to my iPad Pro, I take the Apple Pencil, I connect it to the side of the iPad mini, it's connected, I then edit a banger inside of Lightroom. And if you want to follow me on Instagram or Twitter, my username is @Caputo. Now, I feel that the iPad mini 6 can really handle just about anything. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that the iPad mini 6 should be used to take, extra high fidelity photos of your son or your family. or that you're going to want to tap out a 4,000 word video script on the on-screen keyboard. That's not really ideal. But if you had to, it would work. I would probably use different tools, but that's just saying, you could do it. As I talked about in my 30-day review of the iPad mini 6, I really have not been impacted by jelly scrolling. I don't think it's necessarily a big deal. I know there are certainly people who have maybe a higher sensitivity than I do to it. But what I would say is that don't take my word for it, don't take their word for it. Go to the store, whether it's the Apple Store, Best Buy, wherever the case is, and see the device firsthand and see if you are actually experience it or observe it on there. I haven't had any trouble, and that's really the thing that I would tell you is that if you have trouble, you'll probably notice it right away. If you don't have trouble, you probably won't notice it. Over the past 90 days, I have found using the iPad mini 6 to be quite freeing in compared to using other large screen tablets. For example, there seems to be this preconceived notion that the iPad Pro is only for serious work and that people like you or I could not use the iPad mini 6 because the iPad mini 6 cannot span, personal and professional contexts. What makes the iPad mini 6 so exceptional in both personal and professional contexts is the size and that the portability is really the number one feature. The iPad mini 6 is so small and so lightweight, other devices are really less approachable because of their large screen. Now, let me underscore that for you. As you move up the pricing ladder from the iPad 9th generation to the iPad mini to the iPad Air, all the way up to the iPad Pro, you exchange cost for specialty features. Now, what that means is that on the low end of the pricing spectrum, there are devices like the iPad Air, again, iPad mini, iPad 9th generation, which are good for everyday use, but excel maybe in one or two specific use cases. For the iPad 9th generation, it's cost. For the iPad mini, it is certainly size and conformability. Second, the iPad mini is far more conformable and portable than any other iPad that you have in the lineup because of its size and weight, which again is underscored by the fact that the iPad mini 6 can hold its weight in performance when you compare it to its larger siblings. Now, it is the end of the day, and we're trying to figure out, is the iPad mini 6 worth it after 90 days? And is it worth maybe either recommending to someone or is it worth purchasing for yourself? Well, starting at $499 for the 64 gigs, going all the way up to $650 for 256 gigs, and then you can add cellular on there for another $150. Now, I don't know about you, but the iPad mini 6 is really by far my favorite device that I've used this far this year. I'd say it's probably one of my favorite things I've purchased, I think, in the last few years for sure. Its size conformability really plays into the fact that it can be used in a number of different use cases, a number of different contexts, and those contexts can span both personal and professional, not necessarily having the expertise of an iPad Pro, but being very good for general use. I've heard from people saying that they're using it to write scripts. I've heard it from people saying that they're using it as a pilot, whether it's a helicopter pilot or an airplane pilot, a number of different things. And while those are nuanced, because everyone's not a helicopter pilot or not everyone is a writer of scripts, I think that just shows that the iPad mini 6 is capable of many different things. Now, what I would tell you is that if you're thinking about buying it, start at the iPad mini and then level up from there. I've talked about where I think that the iPad 9th generation is really just a distraction or something to get you into the store, and that the iPad mini 6 is really the device that most people should start with. And I would tell you that because of a few different reasons. So first and foremost, it does have the newest processor of all three of the low-end devices that are available today from iPads. It's better than the 9th generation iPad, which comes in at $329, and it's better than the iPad Air 4, which starts at $599. It has the same front-facing camera and center stage technology as the 9th generation iPad while having a better rear camera, and it has a better front-facing camera than the iPad Air, and it has the same rear camera. So in my opinion, it truly is the best device that most people should start with, the $329 iPad. If you're shopping on price, that is a great iPad for you. However, if you're not shopping on price and you're shopping on experience and you want to have longevity in your purchase, I would think about purchasing the iPad mini 6, at least starting there from a thought process perspective. All right, everybody, thank you very much for watching my review of the iPad mini 6 after 90 days. If you're in the market for an iPad mini 6, let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below. And if you already own one, what is your favorite use case that you have for it? My name is Mike. This is Tech 24/7 TV. Folks, I will talk to you in the next one. Happy holidays.